Well, welcome to this session. We're going to talk about Microsoft OneNote, how you can store and access information, and how it can help you with collaborating with whatever community you have, whether it's at work or with people in other organizations. So one of the reasons why I did this is I always get a lot of questions about like how do you store all the information that you need that's not a part of like an official document or official database within your organization. For example, I have, when I worked on getting my master's degree, everything I did for all my classes, I would start in OneNote. And then if I had an assignment and I needed to then copy and paste it into a web browser or put it into Word to make a report document, I used it for that purpose. The nice thing about that is that I have all that information now in a knowledge base that I can go use moving forward. We wanted to kind of cover that in this section and give you some information on how OneNote can help you with that, what we call knowledge management or your knowledge base or a knowledge community. In other words, how do we take this knowledge that you have and use it? And for me in cybersecurity, there's a lot of different moving parts. There's a lot of different concepts that I need to understand. There's a lot of things I come across that I read that I need to maybe access again in the future. I also see that there's a good use for this in a business. If you have clients and you want to track information about clients, that's another good use for it. If you're a student, you want to keep track of your classes, that's a great use for it. If you just want to take notes and keep a list and share it with your significant other, you can use OneNote to do that as well. So there's a lot of power that OneNote has. I think a lot of people struggle with, maintaining a bunch of Word documents that they put into folders that may have different pieces of information that they have to go then back and look for. I think OneNote makes it a lot easier to do all of those things. And so that's what we're going to talk about OneNote today. So basically, what is OneNote? Everybody always asks that question first. It's like a digital notebook. So it gives you a place that you can put all your information, all your notes, and then you can search it later. And you can quickly find what you're looking for, because you can do whatever structure you want, whatever makes sense to you. It's like a notebook, and in a notebook, you can divide up the information any way you want. The benefit to this than a notebook that you don't get from a notebook is in OneNote, you can always search for it later and find it very quickly, even if it's not necessarily saved in the right location. You can still find the information. But the nice thing about OneNote is you can also move it around from notebook to notebook or section to section to easily find information, which sometimes I find if you have a paper notebook, you can't really do that with it, right? You have to rip the page out and then or unless you have like binder ones, but being able to search for a term and find every term in all of your notebooks, that is a very powerful tool indeed. And so OneNote is an application that comes with Microsoft Office. It also comes with Windows 10. It's free. So even though it comes with Office 365, you can get a free version of it and download it. I think with Office for students and for academics, it comes as a part of that because, again, it's a notebook, so it kind of helps you track all that stuff that you would normally write down on a paper notebook. But you can use it for all kinds of other things. And we're going to go over what all those different areas are and some of the ways that you can use it at work. So what are the 10 benefits of using OneNote? And one of them is that you can gather all your notes and information in one place. It becomes a way of backing up that information. So it can be up in the cloud and on your computer if you set it up that way. You can easily find information. You can do a search and quickly find what you're looking for. You can work with other people on projects where you need their knowledge or they need your knowledge, or you want to share knowledge with each other. I think of at Mays & Associates, I know that when we used to have paper files, there used to be in the section of the paper files, there'd be a list of all the restaurants that were near that client. In case you were out on the audit, you go back and look up, the restaurants and all that stuff. Now, that's not a part of the audit, right? So that's information outside of it. But because we're using something like Microsoft Teams, we could put a OneNote notebook in there and put that type of information for that client engagement in that section. So again, that's where we can collaborate with it. When we collaborate with it, we can avoid duplicating work. So that kind of helps out. And you can organize it any way you want to, whatever works for you. And it can help you prioritize and manage tasks. In fact, in the IT department, we actually use it as a means of keeping track of all of our ongoing projects and what tasks each individual has. So we can show you what that kind of looks like. We can help organize meetings and take notes during meetings and possibly even record meetings. And we can get up to speed quickly if we have the notes, and we can just go back and reference them really quickly. Basically, it interacts with the rest of Office, so it can help you be more productive. And I'll show you kind of some of those aspects as we go along here. So this is OneNote 2016, and I'm going to go over all of the components that they have here. This is an example of how I use OneNote, in that I have a notebook that's just for cybersecurity. And in that cybersecurity notebook, I have a bunch of different sections. Each section has a bunch of different pages, and it has information that I may use again in the future. I do a lot of presentations, so if I come across a news article that's related to something that I may want to use in the future, I can save it here. That way I don't have to go and try and search the internet trying to find that information. If I've already found it, let me keep it so that's in my knowledge base, and I can use my knowledge base to find that information again in the future if I need it. So notebooks. So in the desktop version of this, you'll see on the left-hand side, we have a list of the different notebooks that I have here. And you see one's called PCI Review, one's called IT Ops, and the IT Ops one is opened, and you can see all the different sections in there. And then I have a to-do list and so on. The nice thing about the desktop version of this is I can open up multiple notebooks that can be in different locations. So, and depending upon how and where you store the notebooks depends upon whether you can have access in other locations. And we'll talk about that in a future slide here. Now, the sections are underneath the notebooks, and the sections are completely made up. You make up the sections that you want that make sense to you, right? So we do have it set up here. You can see that I have policy and procedures, and I have to-do lists and vendors and Office 365. So we've divided it out into different content areas. And then each of those content areas or sections, you can see that we have pages listed out on there. And so this is all the pages that are in that section. So if you look, I'm in the policy and procedures section, and the particular page that I'm on is called application and service rollout. So just talking about, you know, how we're going to roll stuff out. So this becomes, in our instance, more of a standard operating procedures manual, right? That's kind of how we're using it. This is shared with everybody in IT, so everybody in IT can have access to all this information. So if somebody was out sick or somebody wasn't here, anyone can log into it and then look that stuff up. So that's kind of how we have it set up. And this is the notebooks, the sections, and the pages. We want you to kind of understand how OneNote is kind of divided up. But if you think of a notebook that you had when you went to school, it'd be one notebook, and then the notebook typically had sections in it. Maybe had little tabs on the side, and then there are pages past that. And that's all that we're doing here. So you can see that this is different than Word. If you had a Word document and you were trying to put all this information into it, you'd have a 500-page long document, and then you'd have to go in and search all 500 pages to find what you're looking for. Now, you could open up navigation, and if you set it up in Word, and then quickly get to a section, you can also put in, if you were doing it in Word, you could put in a table of contents. But Word's not really meant to be like a knowledge base. And in the theories that we talk about in data science, we talk about unstructured data. And unstructured data is data that doesn't necessarily fit into a defined format, right? And that's exactly what OneNote can deal with. It's like a database in a way that can deal with all different types of data and data that's not even related to each other necessarily can always still put into the knowledge base and in different formats, which is an important part of that. And here's where the page is. Obviously, it's in the center in this version or this view. You can see what the page is. Notice that it puts down the date and time that you created this page. So in the future, if you're like, when did I make this page? How old is this page? Is it out of date? It automatically puts a date and time on it. So that kind of helps in the future if you want to see if that's current information, or if, which one, if there's two different versions of it and you want to know which one's the newest one, you can look it up that way as well. And up in here at the top, the ribbon, or sometimes what people call the toolbar, in Office, we now call this the ribbon, but in that area is where you will find all the different things. And we'll go through each of the different tabs in a future slide, but I just want you to understand that that's what's up at the top there. So that kind of gives you an idea. Now, OneNote comes in all kinds of versions. And to make things confusing, don't know why, Microsoft decided we're going to have two different versions for the desktop. We're going to have one that comes with Windows 10 and one that comes with Office. So the one that comes with Windows 10 is free. It just comes with Windows 10. The other one that comes with Office is also free. You can download it off the website, or if you have an Office subscription, it's included. So but they both act differently and they both look differently. And so I'll get to that in a second. Apart from that, there's mobile platform. So they have OneNote is also for your mobile platform. So you can have it on your Android or your iPhone. So think about this. Everything that you have and all the information you need can be at your fingertips on your phone, right? So that's really powerful if you think about wanting to have access to your information. The nice thing is, if I was at a client and they asked me a question and I'm like, oh, I read a newspaper article about that the other day, I can quickly look on my phone, do a search and find the notebook section or page where that is, and then look it up right from my phone. I don't have to have my computer. I don't have to have anything else. All I need is my phone. They do make it for the Windows Mobile as well, although that operating system's not widely used anymore. And then they have OneNote Online. So if you've stored your OneNote notebook in a cloud service provider, Microsoft cloud service provider, you can use OneNote Online to open it, right? So now you can have your notes kind of everywhere if you think about it. I can sit down in a browser and I can look at my notes. I can look at them on my phone. I can look at them on my computer. The nice thing is we can get them all to sync together. So I have all my information everywhere I want to go. So if you're on the desktop version in Windows 10, I told you there's two different versions. You can see one's called OneNote and one's called OneNote 2016. The 2016 is the one that comes with Office, and the regular OneNote is the one that comes with Windows 10. So people are like, why is there two different versions? Why do I care? Which one should I pick? It's up to you, whichever one works best for you. I know that a lot of people say, hey, just use the newest one. Well, both of them are updated. If you are opening up Windows or OneNote on something other than Windows 10, like Windows 8 or Windows 7, then you'd want to use the desktop app that comes with Microsoft Office. If you have Windows 10, it's already there, so you can already kind of leverage that one in place. There is a difference in how they display the information, so you want to kind of take a look at that. I have always kind of used as my main one, mostly because I've just been using it forever, is the desktop version that comes with Microsoft Office. So I've been using that since 2005-ish or somewhere back in that time frame. So I've been using OneNote for a very long time. I was actually looking at some of my notes, and some of the notes that I have in there are over 10 years old. It's kind of interesting. And I still have access to them. So if you look on the online version, you saw the earlier version that I showed you where the sections were on the left-hand side and on the right-hand side was all the pages. And what they've done with the online version is they put the pages right next to the sections. And because you're online, you're only opening up one notebook at a time. So it has your one notebook at the top, all the sections for that notebook, and then next to it, whichever section you're highlighted on, it'll show you all the pages to that. So think of it as like a hierarchical navigation, right? And then your page is over here to the right. So this view is the view that is available if you look at and you use OneNote online. So in other words, your notebook is in your OneDrive or OneDrive for Business or SharePoint or in Teams, you're going to see this kind of a view. The interesting thing is that view is called the Universal User Experience view. Why am I telling you that? Well, the deal is this. Microsoft's trying to make Office look the same no matter where you're using it. So if you use the online version of OneNote, it looks the same as if you're using the Windows 10 version, looks the same if you're using the Windows or the Mac OS version. They want it to be like a convergence, so it looks the same everywhere you go. And that the view that they've kind of sided with is the desktop version that comes with Windows 10, which is the notebook sections and pages all off to the left-hand side with your page in the center. As opposed to, of course, you can see down at the bottom of this slide, the Office version, which has the pages off to the right, which is a traditional one. So OneNote's been around for quite some time, and that's the way it used to look. So they kind of kept that on that version of it. Again, you can open up the same notebooks in both applications, and you'll get the same information. So it's more of a whichever one you prefer to use. Obviously, if you use what we call the universal user experience, then if you cross-platform or you go to the online version, it all feels the same and acts the same and looks the same. And that's what they're trying to get at. Neat, cool thing that you can do. So how can you get information into OneNote? There's a number of different ways. When you install OneNote, like OneNote, the desktop version, you'll get this little printer that shows up. Anything you want to print, you can print and it'll go right into OneNote as if it was a printed page. So if you had a report or an Excel sheet that you wanted to print out, it's going to print it out as if it was a printout and stick it into a notebook for you. And you can select where you want that page to end up, but this gives you one way. So anything you can print can get put into OneNote. The nice thing about it is if it's an image and there's words inside of that image, OneNote can actually go in there with OCR and find out what is all the text that's in that document. And that can be very helpful if you're searching for something that is in a graphic, and you can still find it even though when you type in a search term, you can still find it. Right? Typically in a graphic, if you put a graphic up in the cloud and you do a search, you're not necessarily going to find it because computers are not reading the graphics, right? They only read text. But OneNote gives you the ability to actually do the OCR and make it available as well when it's in the cloud. So take a look at Send to OneNote is one great way to get information into OneNote. If you can print it, you can stick it in there. Another way to get OneNote into it is to open up your browser and look for an extension, and there's a OneNote Web Clipper extension. You can always highlight some text that's on a website, right-click, copy, and then paste it into OneNote. That's what I used to have to do if I read a blog article or something like that that I wanted to keep. Now there's a little extension that you can add into Edge. I think it's available in Chrome too, but in that extension, you can click on it, and then it will ask you, right, what do you want on this page? Do you want the full page? Do you only want a section of the page? Do you want the article? Or do you just want a bookmark, right? And then it'll ask you, where do you want to save it? And it'll list all the different locations that you have that you can save it, and then you can hit save. Now, in Edge, one thing to be aware of is profiles. Edge has different profiles. So I have a profile with my personal account attached to it in Edge, and then I have one that's attached to my work account, so that whether I'm at home or whether I'm at the office, I can switch the profiles that Edge is using, and it keeps the passwords for one separate from the passwords for the other. The automatic filling in for the web browser is separated from my personal and from my work. It can also separate out what OneNotes you're going to see. So if you have personal OneNotes and personal OneDrive, and you're on your personal profile, it's going to try and save it there. If you're on your work profile, and you have OneNotes in your business OneDrive, it's going to give you the list of those. So just know that if you don't see all your OneNotes, it's maybe because of how your browser is, if that browser has been associated with your work or with private, or if you've logged in to both on the same browser. Anyways, it shows you what the page is going to look like so that you have an idea. It takes a second to load because it's going to render everything. And notice it copies the whole page, the ads and everything. Sometimes you don't want all that, and sometimes you just want an area of it, and that's where you'd use article or region to do it. If you copy and paste from someplace, it's actually going to tell you where you got that article. So easy reference in the future, it's like, oh, where did I get this information? This helped when I was in school. So I was reading a lot of articles and stuff online. Even when I was reading professional journals, again, I would take that information, copy and paste it into my OneNote, and then when I paste it, automatically gave me the information of where I got it. So if I had to go back at a later date, I could just click on it and go back to that web page and find it. If I needed to reference it in the future, I had the information necessary to do it. So it's helpful that way. You don't have to do that. It just automatically keeps track of that for you. Now you can drag and drop documents right into OneNote. So this is a page that I have that's open here, and I dragged and dropped a Adobe PDF file. I grabbed and dropped it there, and it says, okay, what do you want to do to it? You want to attach it? Do you want to insert a printout? Or do you want to copy to SharePoint and make a link? I did insert a printout, and then what it does when you do that, you can see here in the blue square, it gives you the document, which it stores up in the cloud, if it's up in the cloud, that's where your OneNote notebook is. And then you can see here this little gray line that's around this little graphic at the bottom. That's the cover page to that article, and it puts it right there into my OneNote. And this is useful because now that PDF is in my OneNote, there's a picture of it in there. I can annotate those things, and it becomes searchable, right? So I can actually take PDFs of documents and stick them into OneNote. A lot of people don't recognize that you can do that. You can do that with Word, Excel. You can do it with all kinds of documents. You can stick them in there into your OneNote note file and put it on a page and then access it through that means in the future and then find it. When you do a search, now let's say you put something in there, there's a little, up in the right-hand corner, there's a little search box, and I type in cybersecurity, and it picks up a bunch of different notebooks that I have. It tells me what notebook it is, what sections it's in, and what the name of the page is. So, and then it highlights if the term that I'm looking for is on that page. When I click on one of those pages, it will highlight that term everywhere on that page. So you can see that when it can become very powerful for you doing searches. If, I've done that a couple times. Like I have presentations and I like to use quotes, you know, like famous quotes that people have said. And so I have a OneNote notebook that's just a bunch of quotes divided by topic. But sometimes I'm like, I don't know what the topic, what I would have put it under as far as topic, but I know it was this person, or I knew part of the phrase that was in the was this. I start typing it up there, and then I can find it, and then use it for, you know, my presentation if that's what I wanted to do. So again, makes your search really easy. And I use this all the time for all the different areas of cybersecurity that I have to, you know, kind of remember and stuff. No one can remember everything. There's a part, or there's issues in cognitive science that have demonstrated that our ability to remember and retain knowledge is actually far more limited than we normally think it is. In other words, we can't recall stuff. That's why a lot of people will read a book, and then if they go back to it 10 years later, they don't necessarily remember the book, or they don't remember all the parts of it. Nobody can remember all that information. So same thing's true with your work, right? All the information that you gather when you work, you have to try and remember all of that stuff. Again, this makes it a lot easier to remember all that information because you just put it in OneNote and then you don't have to remember it. You can always go back to it at a later date. And if you can't remember where you stored it, you can always search for it, right? So that's what makes it very powerful and user-friendly. So what else can you do with it? Well, there's a lot of stuff that you can do with OneNote beyond this. I just kind of showed you the basics now. Now I'm going to show you a little bit about how you can use it in different environments and what's on the toolbar, so that you can so we can talk about what are some of the options in there with that. And you see the graphic over there in the left-hand side, somebody has a tablet computer and they're holding a pen. With OneNote, you can actually use ink where you can actually draw on the page. It can be like a whiteboard, or it can be like a regular notebook. You can, of course, if you have a tablet PC and you have Office, you can do that with Word and Excel and PowerPoint. You can actually write onto the slides. OneNote is kind of built for that. The other ones have that capability, but OneNote's really full-featured when you kind of look at what it can do with what we call ink or writing onto a page when you're doing it. So let's look at some of the different things. Just to give you an idea, here's all the different tabs. There's a lot of different things in the tabs, and obviously the Home tab is where you're going to do different things. Like if you want to make a to-do list, you can see up here to the right, it says to-do tag. It gives you a checkbox that you can actually check or uncheck, right? You can actually import your Outlook tasks into here. You can, and that's all in that first Home tab. You'll notice also there, it says styles. And so you have paragraph style. So if you want to have a paragraph header, you can do heading 1, heading 2, heading 3, heading 4. You know, it changes it so that you can actually do kind of like an outline. You do have the ability to do an outline, bullets, numbers, almost everything that you can do in Word, you can do here. It doesn't have the reference capabilities if you use those in Word or Excel, like footnotes and all that stuff. That capability is not in OneNote. OneNote's not made for that. That's what Word's made for. So there's different tools for different things, right? This one's where you just put everything in there. It's unstructured. You kind of do what you're going to do with it. You use it to re-reference and later and that kind of stuff. Notice that also on this one, you have email. So you can email a page. So you can actually take a page that if you've already written up everything, you want to give it to somebody, you just hit email and it sends them an attachment that is just that page. So that's one way in. Look under the insert. Now, insert means that you can insert something into a OneNote notebook. The really cool thing about this is you can put in screenshots, you can put in pictures, you can clip a screen, you can put a spreadsheet in there. There's the ability to put a table directly into it. You can do a file printout, you can attach a file, a link in there. You can link to an online video, and then it'll put a little player in there. So like if you have, if you take a link from YouTube and you stick it in a OneNote notebook, it's actually going to switch it and give you a little preview of the video in there. And if you don't want that and you just want the link, you have to go, there's a little box that pops up at the bottom and you right click it and say don't automatically do that. And then it'll leave the link for you. You also have the ability to record audio or video. So this is really kind of interesting because you can actually do a meeting and record audio or video, and then they'll store the file with the OneNote. And if you go back over the meeting notes, whatever notes you took during the meeting, and you're watching the video, it can keep track of where you were writing at the time that that video was at that location. So you walk through your notes as you watch it. Also, you can go to your notes, go to a section, and it'll take the video right to that position that you were at, or the audio for the meeting, and start from that point on. So it kind of like takes your notes as you've been keeping track of them in the meeting and correlates it to different time periods throughout the recording, so that either way, you can click on something, say, oh, I remember we talked about this at the end of the meeting. You click to the end of the meeting, and it'll automatically open up the audio or video file at that place when you were taking that note. So if you jump around a lot with your notes, then it gets a little confusing sometimes, maybe when you're listening to the recording later date, but for the most part, it works. There's page templates. I'll show you that here in a little bit. There's equation and symbol manager. So you can actually do mathematical equations in OneNote. I know a professor that teaches math at a local college, and he actually uses OneNote to do as his whiteboard because he can use the equation editor. It can do some math. He can also write with like a whiteboard, write it down there, and it can actually turn it into an equation for him. So OneNote's got some really cool things with that. If you're not doing equations on a regular basis, it may not really be that cool. And actually, you'll see that on the next tab down, Draw. You'll see Ink to Math all the way to the right. And you also see next to it, it says Ink to Text. So if you've written a bunch of text, with the ink, in other words, writing it out, you can click on that and it'll turn it into text. So it'll read what you've written and put it in there. You can insert spaces, you can arrange things, you can layer them if they're in there. Notice all the different types of selectors you have and different types of pens that you have and highlighters that you have. There's all kinds of things for different colors and thickness for the lines. So all the different drawing tools that you might want to have are all in there. You can also, you don't have to use a stylus to draw with. You can actually just draw with your hand. So that can be very useful if you don't have your stylus with you, but you have a touch screen, you can actually just touch on the screen and then draw whatever you need to draw on it, like it's a whiteboard. And then it's saved. And then history, you can see back, you can see what you read. You can mark things as being read if you haven't read them. You can look at your recent edits, so you can kind of look at all that stuff. If multiple people use the same sheet, you can see who the authors are, and maybe you don't want to see it, you can hide it. You can also look and see who wrote something. So you can say, find the author, and you can see what they've done. You can also send stuff to the recycle bin. So if you've deleted something, you want to recover it in OneNote, you can go to the recycle bin and get it back. So more from that, on the review tab, you have all your things like spelling, thesaurus, some research that can help you with that. You can also have different translation tools that are in there. I know a lot of people that like that little translation tool. It's just, it goes to the internet and uses the Microsoft translation tool. So it's just put into there. You can password a section. You take a whole section and password it. Note on that though, if it's in the web, when you open up the web version, you can't open it up. You have to open it up on the desktop version. So if you use passwords, just be careful about that. It may make it harder to access or limit where you can access it from. You also have a link to other pages. So if you have a OneNote notebook and you want to link to another page, you can click on that and it'll ask you where the page is and you can put it to that other page. So that you can do that. Under the view, you have all kinds of different tools there. Notice one says rule lines. So if you want to have a notebook that actually has like lines in it, you can actually make your page have lines. It has graph paper available in there as well, college ruled, wide ruled. It has all that kind of stuff available as well. You can also change the page color. There's also the ability to change graphics in the background of the page. So you can make it look all fancy or nice if you want to do those types of things. Some other items under view, and then you also have help. Help to contact support, that would be Microsoft support. Give feedback on features you like or not to Microsoft. And then showing training. So there is training available for OneNote, and you can click on that, and it'll take you to go see that training. So here's a template. And if you go to the Insert tab and you go to Page Templates, then this box over here on the far right pops up and it says, hey, what kind of template do you want? You see this one page here, it's a meeting page, and it's kind of boring. It's just white page, and that's all it is. But if I click over here where it says detailed meeting notes, no, let's do formal meeting notes. I hit formal meeting notes, and then notice what comes up. A new page that has the agenda, the attendees opening, approval of agenda, approval of minutes. It follows the standard formal meeting process, and it puts all that information into a page already for you, so you don't have to invent it. It's already there. You just change the name of the title for the meeting for whatever you want to call it. You put in your agenda, put in your attendees, and then you go from there. And again, like I said earlier, you can record it, the audio or the video, as you go through that, and it'll embed that into this page as well. So that's one example. Also notice that the white page has kind of been replaced with a page with this lining around the side of this blue line up at the top, and then onto the left of the page, there's like a gray line with a little bit of a blue area in there. It's just, more something I don't know. It's just to make it look nicer, but that's get added into. So if you look in the templates, there's all kinds of different things like that that'll put into your pages for you. Nice little things. So here's the record audio. Once you do that, you'll get this Playback tab, and in the Playback tab, you can hit play, record, pause, rewind, fast forward, see the playback. Will show you as you've gone through the meeting where it is, right? And then it also tells you when the audio recording started. So, you know, if you're starting a meeting and you start the recording, it'll tell you exactly when you did it. And notice that it puts the file there. You can actually take that file and you do whatever you want with the file. If it's a video file or it's an audio file, you can save it in other ways going forward. Here's an example of a math one. Here's a math page where someone used some ink on it, showing, you know, how to do a math problem. And this kind of gives you an idea of where they might use it. Notice the page has a printout on it, and then in the background it has the lined or a rule on it. And then you see ink that's on it so that someone can draw or explain whatever they're doing. Great for teachers and instructors who want to use it. Here's another example of this is actually the old version of OneNote. I think that's 2007 version of OneNote, this screenshot. But again, just showing you kind of what a meeting example might look like. Yeah, look, this one's from 2007. Here's a to-do list. Again, it has these little check boxes right here, and then you can put each of your items for your to-do list to the side of that. And then all you have to do is check it off when you've completed it. And this is some of my notes from the first time I did a class on this, which was back in 2007, and I showed some examples. Notice that this page also has that background graphic that it puts into it. When you use a template, the template may have some graphics related to it that you can put on a page. Of course, I can delete all of these things, change anything that I want to change on it. There's more than just checkboxes that you can use. You can put stars next to text. You can put in exclamation points next to text if you want to highlight it. There's a bunch of other, you put a little question mark next to it. There's a lot of little tools, these little, I don't know what the doodads are called, but like these little checkboxes that can go in front of text, and you can put all kinds of different other items in front of it, like star. If it's like important, you can put a star next to that little box as well. Here's an example that I did a long time ago. I read a cybersecurity document, and so I wanted to take some notes. So I highlighted it, and I put notes over here to the right. So to the right here is my notes. This is a printout of the page. So it was a PDF. I dropped it into here. Here's the page. And then I was able to highlight different areas of the text. Just like if I was reading a book, you know, and you want to annotate it. I know if you've ever taken a critical thinking class or critical reading class, they highly recommend that you annotate what you read, which is you take notes in the margins and you highlight things or you underline text, and you interact with the text, in other words, by either writing on or highlighting. Well, that's what you can do in OneNote. It's what I'm doing here. I highlighted the text and I put my comments off to the right. My comments off to the right, I can just grab and move around if I want to move them around, if it's on the wrong page, and I can scroll it down. And I can do whatever I want. Notice the page, though, on the right-hand side here, you see the scroll bar. Notice the scroll bar is way up at the top. So there's a lot of text in here. I think this document is a couple hundred pages long. So OneNote can handle large documents, and you can do these types of things. And this is really useful if I'm sharing this information with a team. The team, I've already read it, so the team can go over there and they can just look at my highlights, or they can look at my notes and kind of skim through it a little bit easier. Makes it a little bit easier for them. A blank slide. I'm not sure what a blank slide is supposed to be. It is blank. There was something there. Don't know what it was. We'll skip that one for now. So if you set up OneNote on your device, your PC, your tablet, or your phone, typically it's going to store OneNote on that device. The issue that you're going to have with that is if you want to share it or want to access it on another device, you're not really able to do it. So this is the important thing. You want to set up OneNote, you want to start using it, set the OneNote file up first in the cloud where you want it to be. So on a personal level, you can use OneDrive, Microsoft's OneDrive. It's a free account. You can set it up. Go in there, set up your OneNote notebook. Then that OneNote notebook exists in the internet, on the cloud, in OneDrive, and then you can synchronize it or access it from any device that you have. So that's the idea that you want. So when you go to set it up initially, you want to set it up in the cloud so that you have access to it everywhere. So all of my notebooks are in either personal OneDrive, business OneDrive, or a SharePoint site or a Teams site. And I can synchronize to all of my devices. So I can have my stuff on my tablet or on my phone. So it's really useful. I can share it with my team as well. So better way to use OneNote is to use it with OneDrive or one of those other Microsoft online tools. It's not going to work if you try to use Google Drive or Dropbox or any of those. It doesn't work with those, the Microsoft cloud services. And you can access it with just about any of the different browsers that are available out there for you. So when I look at this, so you have your personal OneDrive, which is over here on the left. It's not really set up for sharing, although you can share with it. It's not really, it's meant to be your personal drive and just you use it, right? It's your data, it's like your My Documents on your computer. Not really meant for everybody else to use. Can you share stuff on there? Yeah, but not the best thing to do. If you want to share something, you want to use either SharePoint or Teams in Microsoft Office 365 because that is made for collaboration, right? And depending upon the use case or how you want to use the notes, is a team going to use it or is everybody in your organization going to use it? Depends upon maybe where you want to store it. But if you store it in SharePoint and Teams, if it's in Teams, people need Teams to access. They don't necessarily need Teams to access because they can still get to the back side of it. In SharePoint, it's available up there. I think the biggest thing with Teams is if a team is working on something, then everything that team needs can be in that team interface. And so it's probably a lot better to put it in Teams rather than SharePoint. Although, if you know the technical side of it, anything that's in Teams is also in SharePoint. And SharePoint is kind of like the under the hood version of Teams. So if you're in SharePoint, you can still get to your OneNote notebook through SharePoint, even if it is in Teams. And if it's in SharePoint, you can actually kind of pull it into Teams. So it's different ways of doing it. If you need help with that, talk to your IT folks. They would have to help you with that. The point of this is that you can share it back and forth. OneDrive for Business is like your own personal My Documents at work, right? So yeah, you can share there, but not really meant for sharing. Now, the nice thing about that is on all your different devices, you can access all those different notebooks, right? So you can have access to all those different notebooks. You can get into them and you can add stuff to them from your mobile device, from a web browser, from your tablet's mobile application, or from your PC or laptop, including Mac, right? So all of those can have access to the items in the cloud. And so I very often will take notes on my computer and then go to my phone and look at those notes, 10 minutes later, right? So I'm still accessing the same information. So that's the point. Now, so part of that is like, where's the collaboration come in? Well, if you're using Teams and you put OneNote in Teams, which I'll show you how to do that in just a moment. And for the most part, if you're going to do it in OneDrive or you're going to do it in SharePoint, it's the same way. But I'll show you how to do it in Teams. That allows your whole team, everybody in your team, to share a notebook so everybody can collaborate. Everybody that's on the team can put their own notes in there. And then if that person moves from that team to another team, that information is not lost. It's still there. It's just a matter of people actually putting the information down, right? The hardest part of OneNote is getting people to use it. Once they start using it, they don't stop using it. I've been using it since 2005 or 2006. I think I had the previous version was like 2003. I think that's what it was. Anyways, I've been using it for more than a decade, and I have notes that are still in there that are over than a decade, and I still use some of that information. So again, it's just a matter of writing down the information, and then now you have a place to store it. And if you share it with other people, then they have access to it, and they can add their knowledge to it. So this is great. If you're doing a research project together with a bunch of people, it's a great thing to do that. If you are working together with a team or with a client or on a project, this is a great way to keep track of information on a project. Some people say, well, Teams has a wiki feature in there. Why don't we just use that? Well, OneNote has a lot of different tools, you notice. The wiki feature doesn't have all those tools, right? So the OneNote is, yeah, kind of like a wiki, and you can use it like a wiki, but you can also record audio, and you can use it as a whiteboard and save all the information in the whiteboard. And I know teachers that will do their class, they have their class outline, they'll open up the OneNote notebook with the page for the lecture, and then they will use it as a whiteboard. And then at the end of the class, if somebody missed the class or somebody says that they would like to get the information that was, you know, the instructor wrote on the whiteboard, they can just hit send via email, which I just showed you earlier where that was. They click send email, and then they can send it to their students. Yes, that's a use case in academics, but again, that can be used in any meeting that you have. You have a meeting with the client, and the client you want to use a whiteboard, you want to write something down for them, you can do that, put it in OneNote, and then you can send it to them. You don't have to recreate what you already did. If you did it on the spur of the cuff, sometimes it's lost. I've had that happen where I was at a client and we were talking about setting up cybersecurity, and I said, well, get a whiteboard and let's write all this stuff down. And so we actually got the whiteboard, and we kind of came up with a structure that we thought would be appropriate. And then we all took pictures of it, right? And then that was how we kept our notes. Well, that's great, but we could have just put it in OneNote, and then it was all captured there. And then if we ever search for it, we could find it. Now I have to fumble around with my phone to see if I still have that picture and where'd that picture go. It becomes a little bit more, it's a lot easier if you use OneNote, if you're going to use something like a OneNote. So if you're in Teams, here's an example of being in Teams. I go to my file area in Teams for the particular team that I'm looking at, and I hit new, and notice that OneNote Notebook is one of the options. So I can click on that. And then that will add me, it'll ask me what name do I want to give the notebook, and I can put the name in there. And then it gives me the notebook, and it's empty. And notice the section and the pages and the notebook are all off to the left side, and then to the right side is the page. And notice it says when you first make it, hey, it's empty. So go ahead and start putting stuff in. Notice in Teams, you have the ability to open up in a browser, which will bring you the online version. You can also, if you have the desktop version, synchronize with this notebook so that it's in your version that you have on your desktop as well. So you don't have to get into Teams to get into the Teams notebook. You can access it directly from OneNote, which makes it a lot easier and accessible. And so here it is. I put in 4 different sections, and I put in some pages just to kind of show you what it would look like if you have it. It automatically colors each section differently once it loads and all that stuff. So again, this is just setting up a notebook in Teams. And there's a lot of good things that you could do with Teams. I could see where any industry that you have, where you have a lot of practice rules and regulations or codes, like if you're a tax preparer, you're going to have IRS codes, and somebody may read the IRS code and say, okay, this is what I interpret this code to mean. And somebody else in that same department may say, well, I read it and I understand this. So using that kind of as your own internal knowledge base, when other people have the questions, they can just go and search the OneNote notebook and then find the answers. So I've seen people do this, like in cybersecurity, I did this where I divided up all the controls that are listed in the NIST control catalog, and I set up a page for each of the different controls, and then I put information about each of those controls, how it's implemented, what's typically implemented, what other clients have implemented it, how they've implemented it. So anytime I'm on a situation where somebody says, oh, what is the appropriate response to a policy about access control? Well, I just go to my AC1 control, which is a page in my notebook, and it would tell me what I had done in the past. So I don't have to remember what I did for AC1 in the past for that particular standard. I've already got it there. So again, this is one of the great ways that you can kind of build that knowledge in. If you're online, you know the little waffle that's up in the corner. If you're on Office 365, you can go to then OneNote is one of the items that pops up there. And then when you click on it, it'll show you all the OneNotes that you have access to, whether they're in Teams, SharePoint, or in your personal OneDrive. It'll show you all the notebooks. You can click on it, and then you'll open it up. So if all the ones that are in the same Office 365, we call it tenant, but your Office 365. So If it's at work, all of your stuff that's at work would be listed here, including those things that are shared with you by other people, which you can see. You can also just click on shared with me and just see the shared with me ones. If people put other notebooks that you've never looked at and you have access to it, in other words, someone put one up that's on a different team, but you have access to it, but you've never looked at it, you hit the discover, you can possibly find those items within an organization. Now, look, I told you that it also interacts with your other Office suite things. So Outlook's a big one, right? So in Outlook, when you're setting up a meeting, let's say this one, I'm setting up a meeting and I want to share notes for the meeting. So I already took notes on what I wanted to cover in the meeting. I can hit meeting notes and select share meeting notes, or I can say take my own notes. Let's say I just hit the share one. And when I do that, it'll ask me, where do you want to save this note at? Or what note do you want to include in this? You can find the page that you want to include. It brings up all your notebooks and then all the pages. You can scroll down into the sections and the pages. And then it'll add to your meeting request, view meeting notes. And when they click on it, it'll take them to the web version and they can see the notes. So this makes it really easy if you're going to have a meeting and you want to have the agenda already written down. You can have it all there. You don't have to include it. If it's in OneNote, you just click on it, they can click on it, and they can see it all in OneNote. And they don't have to have OneNote to see it. Remember, it's going to take them to the web version, which anybody can anyone can access because the application OneNote runs in the web browser. So they don't have to have OneNote installed on their device to see the information, because they'll be using the web version of it. So when we take a look at setting up a meeting, this is what comes up with it. So when I've selected a meeting to happen in Outlook, it's going to, if I tell it to create a new page, it creates a new page and it puts this information in the page, including all the people that I've invited, who the meeting organizer is, and then it gives me a section for my notes. And then I just type in my notes there. But notice it puts down the meeting date and time, right? It puts all that information automatically in there for me. So I don't have to do that later. If I hit, the other thing that's really kind of cool, and we're going to kind of wrap it up, is another really cool feature is if you're on an email and you're in the preview pane in an email, and I'm looking at this October's National Cybersecurity Awareness Month, and I say, oh, I want to save that email for some reason, I can go up at the top and click OneNote. And when I click OneNote up there, it'll open up the little box asking me where I want to save this information. And so I tell it where I want to save this information, what section of what notebook I want to put it in. And then it drops it in. And look, it does the same thing as it does in the, if you drag and drop something in there and it does a printout page of it, it puts it in there. The whole email gets put into there. It tells you what the subject line was, who it was from, who it was to, when it was sent, and then the whole email is right underneath there. The text is there. You can highlight the text and copy and change. You can do all kinds of stuff with it. But again, great way to just capture some information that you may want to use later on in the future. Makes it really easy because it gives you that ability to do it. So the long and short of it is OneNote gives you a place to manage the knowledge that you have, to gather it into one location. You can share it with other people, and that allows you to quickly find it in the future. So when we talk about cognitive science, there's an idea of community of knowledge, and the idea is that no one person knows everything, and no of any one subject, and so you have to rely upon other people that have knowledge as well. And putting all of that together has always been kind of a challenge, right? Here's a great way that you can. So if you have a team, you can actually leverage each other's knowledge if you put it into OneNote. And I'm saying that because you have to use OneNote in order to be able to get the full benefit out of it. And if you have one person on a team that has a lot of knowledge about how things are supposed to be done, but does not capture any of it into OneNote or does not share it with the rest of the team, it doesn't help anybody, right? So if you want the ability to share it with everybody and you want to really have some kind of really good knowledge management, I know that one of the topics that I've talked about recently is a bunch of baby boomers are going to be retiring. And so there's going to be a loss of knowledge, institutional knowledge for a lot of organizations. Trying to capture as much of that information as possible is what most organizations are working on right now. Because the cost of retrieving that information after somebody retires, if nobody else knows how to do it, it's 1.5 times their annual salary is what they estimated it out to be. So rather than spending a lot of money, people spinning their wheels trying to figure out how to do stuff, have people start gathering that information, put it into a usable thing. It helps them do their job better, helps others do their job after they're gone, right? So that's the idea with OneNote. And again, you could just use it for a personal thing. I use it for my grocery list. So I use a task list with little check boxes. I have a list of all the things I typically buy when I go to the store, eggs, milk, all that kind of stuff. And when I run out, I uncheck it. I just do it on my phone, just do the uncheck. And when I'm at the store, I look at everything that's unchecked. So, okay, these are all the things I need to get. And as I go through the store, I just check them back off. And because I save it in Office 365 account that me and my wife have, she has access to it. And she can look at the same exact list that I have. So, so she can update the list or I can update the list and we can both work on it together. So that's just one way we use it. But obviously, you can find all kinds of different ways to use OneNote. I'm not sure why the screen's doing that. Well, anyways, so our webinars, when you attend our webinars, of course, they're suitable for continuing education if that is what you need them for. And I am not sure why this is making them, all my slides are not working. And if you're watching this online, Mays & Associates, you can check out our cybersecurity offerings at maysassociates.com/cybersecurity. We have a number of affiliations with different cybersecurity vendors. And if you want to check us out, check out our YouTube channel and like and follow it, and you can watch our future presentations. Thanks for attending.